Crime. We all know it happens. But what exactly is it? In a minute you'll see some examples of crime, comparing Droitwich with the rest of England. Crime is when people break the law. Laws set up by the government to protect people, to enable people to get on with their daily lives. So first of all, I want to focus on this for a while, and I'm going to leave this up. And what I'd like you to do now is just to pause the video when I say so, and just have a look at this slide here, because it's very interesting. If Droitwich were 1,000 people, that's what it means. Now this was taken in about 2005. These statistics, and I got them straight off the website for the government. Basically, what they mean is this: these different crimes down here are the crimes that have been categorised by the government. And what they've done is they've looked at different crimes. So you can see here that in the Wychavon Council, which is not just Droitwich. Droitwich is the biggest conurbation, the biggest group of houses in that particular area. But in the Wychavon Council, which also includes Ombersley and Fernal Heath and going off towards Evesham on the other side, Bishampton and places like that, there's 117,100 people. That is split up into 50,000 households. Now, if you actually look at that, the average population of Droitwich is between 40 and 50,000. Okay, so that sort of tells you the differences there. But these are the crimes. So if Droitwich was just 1,000 people, 7.6% of the population will have been burgled. Okay, will have been victims of the crime burglary. 10.4 people, if it was just 1,000, would have been victims of the crime of criminal damage. So that's how they do it in the government. If this area was just 1,000 people, this is how many people would have been affected. So I want you just to pause now and have a quick look and see if there's anything that shocks you or anything that's quite amazing. Just sort of jot down your ideas, possibly on your Cornell note making system. Okay, so what did you think then? What did you find out? There's a few things that amaze me and I sort of look at. The first one here is burglary. Now, burglary in the Droitwich area is pretty similar to the national average, the English average. Okay, it's quite close, as opposed to other things like things like robbery, which whilst it's very rare, robbery happens, only 1.6. Around here, it's extraordinarily rare. That's robbery, things like robbing garages and places like that for people who haven't armed robbery and stuff like that. Other offences, if you notice, if you look down at them, offences against vehicles is very, very close, okay, as is things like criminal damage, very close, over half the English national average. But overall, if I was to look at all these figures here, if I was to say moving to Droitwich and look at all of those, none of them is above the national average. In fact, some of them are quite considerably lower. Violence against the person there. Now that has a lot to do with the population of Droitwich. Has a lot to do with the fact that even people that you don't meet, if you think about it, if Droitwich was just 1,000 people, there'd be a very, very small amount of those who'd be your age. Okay, Droitwich is quite not an ageing population, but a population that either commutes a lot. It's a commuter town. So the actual crime in the town doesn't seem to be committed a great deal. For example, a lot of people are quite shocked when they look at the drug offences. Drug offences are nowhere near even half the national average, a third the national average, and yet people assume that Droitwich is has a big crime and drug problem. But as we can see, it actually doesn't. The big ones are criminal damage, offences against vehicles, and other theft offences. So probably minor theft offences, little things like that. Criminal damage, all right, people who graffiti, maybe stuff like that, and offences against the vehicle. So actually, what happens when people attack each other's vehicle? Purely vandalism and things like that. So you can see these are quite interesting, I think, because we live in quite a good area of the UK. There's a number of areas that I've taught in that actually have a much higher than the English national average. Right now, you realise that there's going to be areas that are higher, and there's going to be areas that are lower, and it just sort of opens your eyes up a little bit that actually Droitwich isn't quite a bad town to live in, and as far as crime is concerned, it's not too worrying at all. There are two main types of crime: non-indictable offences, less serious crimes like not using a light on a bike or driving at 34 miles an hour in a 30 miles an hour limit. These crimes are not likely to put you in prison unless you do them frequently. There are also indictable offences, such as an armed robbery or murder, where people generally go to prison if they are found guilty. Some offences are crimes against the person, directed at individuals or a group of people. These can include serious crimes such as rape or murder, but also can include things like neglect or slander. A recent British crime survey showed that only 19% of crime reported to the police was violent crime against a person or a group of people, and most of these involved hardly any injury at all, let alone serious injury.
Bravo! Encore!
The majority of offences are crime against property. For example, stealing, vehicles, shoplifting, downloading music illegally, as well as criminal damage such as vandalism and arson. There's also crimes against the state. This could be serious, like selling secrets to another country, or not so serious, when people try to avoid paying taxes or benefit fraud. Inciting religious hatred is quite a new crime in this country, where some people aim to make others hate a particular religion due to their actions. Here is an example of a girl in the West Midlands who set fire to the Quran at her school to annoy some people who were picking on her. The ignorant thing that she did, however, was that she then put the video onto Facebook so that others in the world could see it. The Quran is a Muslim's most sacred thing. They believe it is the word of their God. By setting it on fire, the girl could have been inciting religious hatred. She actually wasn't. It was a foolish mistake, and she apologised. Here is another example of people trying to incite religious hatred. Watch this video.
Investigating parcel bombs sent to the Celtic manager Neil Lennon, and two well-known supporters of the football club have said that they were intended to maim and kill. All the parcels were intercepted, but they come against a background of sectarian tension. And today the head of European football's governing body said religion and politics should be kept out of sport. Our special correspondent Alan Little reports from Glasgow.
Gary Hooper, look at the space.
Celtic were in action against Kilmarnock tonight, but Scotland has been stunned by the opening of an older and more dangerous rivalry. 4 parcel bombs designed to maim or kill, 2 sent to the Celtic manager Neil Lennon, and 1 each to the club's lawyer Paul McBride and the former MSP Trish Godman, a Celtic fan. Why has football made them a target?
Sending these types of packages through the post is a despicable and cowardly act. Whoever has done this has not only put the person that the package was addressed to in danger, but they have also put a large number of mailroom staff in harm's way.
Celtic draw their support mostly from Scotland's Catholic community, descendants of Irish immigrants who came to Scotland in the 19th century. Support for the club is the expression of a strong and enduring Scots-Irish identity. Support for Rangers represents a different and often opposing kind of Scottishness, a Protestant identity, pro-British, pro-Union, dressed in the colours of the Union Jack. Tension between these two has sometimes in the past spilled into violence. Sectarian divisions were entrenched in the working class communities of Scotland's old heavy industries, where for decades Catholics, often poorer, fought discrimination in the workplace and in public housing. This is where Glasgow's shipyards used to be, the heartland of the old industrial West, and the home of those solid working-class communities where those sectarian divisions and tensions thrived. There's long been an assumption in Scotland that as those communities dispersed or died, so too would the sectarianism that resided there. Well, these attacks have shaken that complacency and forced West Central Scotland to look at something quite dark about its own character. But what is the nature of Scotland's lingering sectarianism?
Certainly some members of the Roman Catholic hierarchy are beginning to come to the view that the issue is rooted not in, if you like, two communities with equal hatred of each other, but in a basic and ingrained anti-Catholicism in some aspects of Scottish society, a basic bigotry against people from an Irish Catholic background.
These attacks have made headlines around the world. Many in Scotland feel it has humiliated their country.
What I hope and believe is, as well as condemning such criminality, that Scotland as a whole will unite together to say, look, anything that besmirches our game of football, anything that causes danger to anyone connected with football, it has to be not just condemned, it has to galvanise our efforts to eradicate these things.
Rangers are to play Celtic this Sunday in a high-stakes game that could well decide the league championship. It'll be a security headache. Sectarianism is an old song in Scotland, sung now with new menace. Alan Little, BBC News, Glasgow.
As you can see, the nail bombs that were sent to Neil Lennon were probably not even set to go off. However, they were there to bring attention to religious hatred between Protestants and Catholics in Glasgow, to incite religious hatred. This is of course wrong, and is now against the law in the UK. Whilst crime and the criminals are wrong, a Christian would say that their actions should be to forgive them, to try and make sure that they come back into society. As we saw with G. Walker last year, she believed that as Jesus forgave, so should we. Muslims believe that law and order is really important, especially obeying God's law as given in the Quran, and that crime and criminals should be given justice, but punishment to deter others, as we shall see, is vitally important for them.